back to bring you your recap on G-Status ATL Hustle, Season 1, Episode 8, Part 2. I have no damn clue why it's a Part 2 and not Episode 9, my God. But this episode is titled, You Are Really Delusional. And this episode is about 4, 5, 6, I think it's about 2 weeks late, my God, because we haven't had an episode in 2 weeks. And Ja did want me to share with the church that he had some technical difficulties, as well as the file was corrupted. If you guys don't understand corrupted files, Ja had to actually redo this episode from scratch, and that is why we had a delay in receiving G-Status ATL Hustle episodes, my God. So I'm going to jump into this recap because we were able to see different sides of various people who I have critiqued and defended on this show, my God, and now the tides are starting to turn. So this episode began where it left off 2 weeks ago, my God, at True's house for his get-together, gathering, whatever it is, I'm not sure, because they use the word events very loosely on this show, and everything so far seems to be lacking being an event, my God. But at True's house, the one thing I want to address is Charlie showing up, being concerned about if True is going to be selling drugs in the bathroom. And I know in the previous recap, I was not sure how I felt about Milan and Charlie bringing up, or at least reiterating the fact that True may possibly be selling drugs, which of course we know is illegal. I don't think it was appropriate for Charlie, who you know is my boo, to mention it again in a situation where I don't think that True Fine was making it a point to share about what he does behind the scenes or what happens off camera. Next, we have to address that Akeem has been gone. Akeem has been MIA, and there was a new villain who showed up, which was Corday, my God. And Corday became so much of a villain that the public was requesting Akeem. So Sir Akeem is back. We found out that he was in jail. I think I received some tea on that a while ago, but I did not want to address it without confirmation. So Akeem himself said that he was actually in jail. He did not say why. I believe he said he was in jail 5 times in the past 5 months, my God. But Akeem speaks very swiftly and just says any and everything. So I'm not sure if he actually was in jail 5 times for the past 5 months. Although my interview with Akeem will be coming soon. So I am going to ask him about his time in jail, my God, because I think we are all want to know if he has other issues going on because of how he presents himself on camera. Also, Akeem did share that his grandmother passed away, and I think that he is deserving of some empathy and love. Because of that, I know that my grandmother raised me, and you guys know that as well, so I can definitely understand how that can affect the course of his life. But I think it was so funny because when Akeem was talking to us and talking on camera, his confessional, he was sharing some of the lessons that his grandmother taught him. And the thing that made me gag was his grandmother teaching him how to wash his wrist and make sure his wrists stay clean. So I'm not sure the significance of that, my God. But again, we do offer condolences and love and support to Akeem because of his loss. Additionally, Akeem did share that he has been going to therapy as well. And he shared that he wants respect from everyone. Now, the thing that bothered me with Akeem stating that he wants respect from everyone is the fact that Akeem has disrespected a lot of other people on this reality series as well as others. So I think that when we address the respect, you must begin with respecting others, because if you're going to require it, you should be giving it as well, my God. What am I missing? Audio. See? Perfect example.
Absolutely. Look at that.
And didn't I just say that?
You did, actually.
That is why I said new information, sitting here, doing everything, even being a perfectionist.
It's all about the process. It really is.
Take 2.
Oh, I'm glad you heard that.
Yes.
Next, we must address Melanjada versus Akeem being at True's house for the kickback. Now, I do have to kind of give Akeem a tad bit of props because Akeem showed up to the event. This was a different setting. He had been away for a while and he was trying to move forward and not bring the baggage from the past. But of course, Melanjada is still carrying the baggage, and from one person's perspective, I can understand trying to move forward. But I know for me, I understand where Melanjada was coming from in reference to wanting to address the past before moving forward. Now, my thing is, this show so far has been drama in every episode. And I think if we're going to move forward and be positive, some things don't need to be rehashed. So Melanjada was still concerned and upset about the fact that Akeem talked about him being androgynous or the lack thereof, then called him a sissy, then mentioned his dick and so on and so forth. But I felt like because a significant amount of time had passed, this was not the appropriate place to have this personal issue and beef at True's house. And because Akeem showed up very positive, I feel like it made Melanjada look like a bully because there was no animosity, there was no issue at this particular event until the negativity showed up from Melanjada, my God. And Melanjada was so concerned about clapping back at Akeem that Melanjada did not realize that she was becoming the same person that we have called out Corday for. I do remember Melanjada going back and forth with Akeem and then saying that he had a diseased dick and then saying that he was homeless. And I defended Melanjada in the situation in reference to people saying that she was insinuating that Sherrod was homeless when the issue was addressed in reference to Sherrod saying that the previous apartment where the first episode happened was actually his. So it's a tad bit difficult to defend somebody, and then now we are at a place in this season where everything that we defended them for, now they're doing the same exact thing, especially because I believe the previous episode we did call out and address that Corday was 100% wrong for insinuating that Sherrod had health issues, health concerns, what's his status, he needs to go to a clinic. And this is why I'm understanding now from what's going on social media as well as interviews that have happened here as to why people are bothered by what may be going on behind the scenes from Melanjada because of these two examples where it's just going too far, my God. Next, there was some random person at the get-together at True's house who tried to shade Akeem and said that he was trying to be the Beyonce of the show when he's not the Beyonce. And the reality of it is, if we think about who could be the Beyonce of this show, it probably really is Akeem, because even though Akeem is very messy, he says the most horrible things. I think that when it comes to being the Beyonce, meaning you're the most known, you're getting the most attention, the most publicity, and people are actually watching a show because of your shenanigans, it's definitely Akeem. So the shade with him not being the Beyonce kind of backfired because the reality of it is Akeem knows how to keep himself relevant on this show. Next, we do have to address Melanjada versus Akeem when it comes to the argument in the hallway when Charlie and Milan exited the apartment and then Akeem came outside. I was a tad bit confused because Melanjada was so aggressive, so confrontational. The funny thing is, just as I said that Melanjada was starting to act like a Corday, Melanjada was beginning to also show himself to act like how Akeem did when Melanjada was actually offended by him. Putting the hands in the face was an issue for Melanjada when Akeem did it. And then Melanjada did the same exact thing to Akeem. And the sad part about it was that we also can acknowledge and recognize that Akeem was actually exuding some extreme self-control. He was trying to stay positive. He was trying to not allow everything that Melanjada was doing bother him. But that whole interaction where Melanjada put his hands in Akeem's face and then pretty much, I would say, hit Akeem. So when you talk about things getting physical, that's definitely a place I think should not go. And I'm a tad bit confused as to why Melanjada, based on what Melanjada says he or she stands for, would take it that far with someone who is not trying to be confrontational. And I know the concerns or the argument is, why would Akeem come into the hallway? But I personally feel like at this point in the episode that Akeem was actually trying to come outside to make amends, to reconcile, and at least understand what was going on, because he did not come to that gathering to be messy, in my opinion. But it does seem like Milan Jadab was fully locked and loaded and prepared to be messy, and or at least throw shade, and significant shade, at Akeem. Also, I must address that this is one of the reasons why I think I do love me some Charlie. Charlie is messy as well, but Charlie, in a sense, knows where he should take a stand, because Charlie did acknowledge that in this scenario and in this situation, Milan was definitely the one who was being combative and kind of picking a fight with Akeem in this particular setting. Next, I must address the fact that although Akeem was keeping it together during the episode, in his confessional, he was still talking. When I meet Akeem, I want to actually dig into his personality and really understand if he is playing a character or if he's actually being himself. Because for someone to be seen during a confessional and saying all of these degrading and disgusting comments, and then he happens to stop and say, wait, that's too far, that lets me know that Akeem actually probably does have a good head on his shoulders, but he's actually playing a certain character in certain role. So I think it's interesting that Ja allowed us to see that part of Akeem. And I think he allowed us to see that because people are going hard publicly about how Akeem behaves, but the reality of it is he trying to play a role and a character to be relevant on this show? Now, I must say, after the mini fights, Akeem did give one of his degrading and disgusting, witty comments. He said that Milan is just behaving that way because Milan wants him to stick his dick inside of him, which again is too far. But the problem is, I think Akeem is saying these things because he feels like he's backed into a corner, and it's the appropriate reaction in his mind when someone is coming so hard. And I think I remember Akeem saying that Milan was becoming this monster or this evil person, and it definitely looked that way to the point where Milan was making certain comments and taking certain jabs, especially in the hallway, and was coming across a certain way and laughing. And my thing is, for as severe as the situation was getting, even to the point where Charlie was concerned about why are these two people fighting in the hallway, for Milan to be laughing, it just makes Milan look like more of a horrible person in this setting, especially because of the fact that this could have been easily resolved. So next we get into this situation where Milan Jada and Charlie were outside. And I love the fact that Charlie at least tried to separate the two. But the problem for me was, after the whole interaction outside, it was kind of like Charlie was co-signing Milan Jada's behavior, but then they came back inside, which should have been a place for them to be able to at least not address each other if they were going to stay in that same situation, at least be cordial. Milan Jada came back and still being aggressive, still being rude, still being disrespectful. And again, we saw Akeem calm himself down and was still trying to behave in a proper manner, my God. Then the second back and forth, of course, happened, where I already said that Milan Jada was still being disrespectful to Akeem, even to the point where Akeem was at the sink and then Milan Jada walked up and was trying to pour his cup over Akeem. Like, it was just too much. And of course, Akeem had his clapbacks. Akeem did say something that was a tad bit offensive, not just to Milan Jada, but a community as a whole, because when he said that Milan Jada was on some transsexual type shit, then it went as far as Milan Jada getting upset, throwing a drink in somebody's house, which I think is just too far. And this moment here was so draining because they were going back and forth and just going entirely too low. And as I already stated, that is where Akeem went as far in his confessional to say quite a bit of things, even to the fact that Milan Jada is taking dick raw and doing coke and so on and so forth. Last but not least, in that particular scene, I thought it was so funny that True ended up trying to, I guess, make light of the situation and just said that everyone should just pussy pop and hash it out. But next, we have to talk about, which I feel like made the whole episode and even the season a tad bit lighter, was Charlie inviting everyone out to the club, and Tramel showed up without Corday. I love the fact that Tramel decided to show up to an event, a gathering, or get together with the crew to at least try to get to know them on his own without the influence or the issues of dragging Corday along, especially because we've seen in the past that Corday has tried to make it as if he's being forced to show up to events or gatherings or get-togethers. Also, after that moment actually happened, we see that Corday did show up on his own, and you guys know that I have gone so hard on Corday, and I do that because I know that the public Corday is not the real Corday. His reactions in the comments section, his reactions on this show is not the real Corday. And it upsets me that he takes that route publicly, opposed to doing what he did in this episode. In this episode, I believe you guys were seeing a more genuine, realistic version of who Corday is. He showed up to the club with his friend. I mean, he was saying that he showed up looking sexy, which he is a very sexy guy, but I think that his public persona is taking away from that. But in this moment, he was carefree, he was fun, he was open, and I think that this is what everyone has been requesting of him when he shows up to these events. If you're going to blame and say that you have been forced to come when you are a grown-ass adult and you can say you don't want to attend, at least attend these events and show up positively, trying to make the best of it. And at this club, we saw Corday dancing, Corday drinking, Corday kissing on Charlie Exile, my God, which made me gag because I know Charlie claims that Corday isn't his type, and then Corday also claims that's not something that he does. And one thing I think that bothers me about Corday is he is very afraid, and I would assume he's insecure with showing us and being his real self, because he said he doesn't drink that much. He said he wouldn't necessarily kiss somebody in the club. And I know firsthand, when Corday saw me in the club, he literally picked me up off the floor, kissed me on the cheek, and I'm not saying that it was from a romantic standpoint, but he is a person that indulges in drinking, which is fine, which I feel like he tries to downplay because of it being, I think it's a negative thing in his mind, which it really isn't if you drink responsibly. And then him kissing me, then seeing him kiss Charlie. And again, I don't want to make it like Corday wants. That's not what I'm saying. But just to share the fact that he is very open and friendly, and he is not really this bitch that he's trying to come across on this show, which I think that there is a battle within Corday with trying to make sure that he's relevant and getting attention. And I think that because he's not getting enough attention from the positive standpoint, he has been choosing to go really hard and be the villain. And it's sad because I'm not the biggest fan of Corday's singing, but I would never say that he could not be an artist and put out music and be successful. And I think that when you don't have, oh gosh, I hate this, the best of the best when it comes to talent on a certain scale, again, it is your objective to come across likable. And I feel like in this moment, at this club, Corday was likable, and we were able to see, I think, the battle within himself with him being who he really is, then kind of making excuses for, or at least downplaying in a confessional with him saying, I don't usually do this. And it was funny because, I don't know if you guys were confused, but I was confused because he was kissing Charlie and then he blamed it on the alcohol. But he also said after kissing Charlie, he found like the love of his life. I don't remember how he put it in this episode, but I wasn't sure if he was referring to Charlie or someone else, because he said that he would carry this person's bag. They went to the bathroom and he would wait on them. And I don't think it was Charlie, because Charlie actually exited the building. So I would love to know who Corday was referring to, because from what I have seen of Corday in person, this club scene is the real Corday. Also, I must address, which could have been the elephant in the room, the other side of Corday. Was I the only one confused how Corday and Milan could stand up on a bench, dancing together, drinking together, and having fun? I feel like it made them both hypocrites, my God, because we had, earlier on in this episode, Milan Jada still trying to address old beefs with Akeem and didn't want to move on. Then here we see in this setting, Melange Da has old beef with Corday, but had no problem just dancing and having fun and enjoying themselves. And from Corday's end, Corday was trying to hold Sherrod accountable for Melange Da's behavior and was still okay dancing next to and having fun with Melange Da. And my thing is, I love that it happened, but I feel like when you think about the inconsistencies in the personalities and or the storyline, it doesn't make sense that these people are holding others accountable for things and then they could be seen in this episode and seen dancing together and having fun together. So I'm a tad bit confused. I would love to know if this actually happened in the correct chronological order, because it didn't make sense for them to be that comfortable in that moment after all that has happened. Next, we were finally introduced to a new cast member named Dracember. Dracember said he is involved in modeling as well as production, and he said he's a public figure who doesn't have a specific job, but I needed to address the fact that Dracember actually saw Corday and Charlie kissing, and he said kissing in the club is like eating chicken in the club. You just don't do it. And I am totally 100% in agreement with that, because to be kissing random people, I would go as far as to say it is a tad bit better to have protected sex in the club than kissing somebody randomly in the club, because I feel like kissing is such an intimate act, and I'm just not gonna be in the club kissing any and everybody, my God. Now, I'm not gonna be having sex with everybody in the club, but it's just still the fact that they will be having this intimate act in the club, and Dracember called it out. Why are these two even doing this? Also, it was funny because during that kissing moment, Charlie said that he kissed the girl and he liked it, and so I'm still trying to see if something actually flourishes during this season between Charlie and Corday.
Did you just say, I kissed the girl and I liked it?
Bye. So to further expound on Charlie kissing this girl, that's why I said the shade is appropriate, because I think that publicly people feel that Corday does give off a tad bit of girl. Last but not least, we must address this moment with Sherrod at the end of the episode, this whole porn situation, my God. Sherrod and his two porn friends. I know one porn friend is JD Blackstone, the other goes by the name of Zaddy. Sherrod did share that it's hard for him to choose either going mainstream modeling or porn, well, sex clips or sex tapes. Porn is definitely his hustle and it's how he eats, so he does really want to do both. And I think this is probably the most honest we've seen Sherrod so far, because I feel like up to this point he has been trying to convey and act as if that he wants to choose mainstream and let go of porn, and the cast has been bringing it up as an issue because they still see current flicks and tapes of him, my God. So I think now in this moment we're getting and seeing that Sherrod really wants to do both and is torn about how to proceed forward with doing both. Then Zaddy said that before he engaged or chose to do porn, he thought about, how it would affect his life, his future, and he made a conscious decision and an informed decision about going into porn. And he shared with Sherrod that Sherrod's issue publicly is that he allows for a certain reaction to happen when people bring it up. And Sherrod needs to learn how to not be bothered by his choices and decisions, if that is what he really wants to do, because people are going to always say what they want to say, but people are now more intrigued because Sherrod's reaction is so defensive, it's so big, and it's not confident in knowing that this is what he really wants to do. Now, it was interesting that both JD and Zaddy said that this is going to always be around and follow Sherrod. So I think it's funny because Sherrod is trying to transition from, or at least he was, now he's not. He's trying to combine both, transition and or combine porn and mainstream. I think the confusing part was JD said that he can't do both he has to stop and choose one or the other, but also acknowledging that it's going to always be around. And I think that's the hard part with trying to decide if you should stop doing one over the other, because I think it comes down to the fact that if this is going to always be something that pops up in my life, even when I leave it behind, what's the point of stopping? Because if it's going to be a conversation, I may as well make current coins and current money from this particular act if people are going to continuously bring it up and it's going to follow me throughout my entire career, especially trying to transition to something more mainstream. Now, I think the conversation was a tad bit inconsistent because then Corvinius said, if you don't, well, is it Corvinius or Daddy? Again, I don't know how to say his name, my God, so we're going to stick with Zaddy. But he did say to Sherrod, if he doesn't want to be known for doing porn, then just stop. And the reason why I said there are some inconsistencies because Sherrod just stopping is not going to change him being known for porn. And they both already acknowledge the fact that it's going to always follow him throughout his life, my God. So while I feel like the two friends did have great advice, they're both not 100% sure on how someone would transition or move forward with retiring or leaving porn behind. And I think it was great that Zaddy did share, I don't want to really call this guy Zaddy, but I don't know how to say his real name, but it was interesting that Zaddy did share that he knows that he had a friend who did porn and was actually fired from his mainstream job. And that's something that you have to consider because I know that I have engaged in sex tapes, porn briefly, and the thing about it for me was I was always my own boss, so no one could fire me, my God. And when it comes to the beauty industry, it makes it so much easier because most women are more so concerned about if you're going to slay their hair opposed to what you're doing in your personal time or what you're doing for a separate hustle or occupation, my God, especially if it's not something that's illegal. So I think you have to consider the fact if you are employed and you have a boss and you work for someone else, I think they should have the right, as well as you have to be mindful of the fact that what you are doing when it comes to porn, sex tapes, sex clips, that you are also representative for someone else's brand, and they may not be okay with you being a part of their brand and you being a sex worker. But I do want to acknowledge before closing that Sherrod did drop a nugget on us. He said he is the first and believes he's the first to go from porn into acting, like mainstream acting. And I was a tad bit confused because I think there are plenty of people who have transitioned from porn to mainstream acting, my God. And I'm not sure why Sherrod would give himself all of that credit unless he's referring to webisodes and YouTube, but I still don't think he is the first. And the reality of it is we have to acknowledge the fact that Sherrod isn't even a porn star. He's more of an amateur sex clip, sex tape actor, my God. But that's about it. This wraps up this recap, which was pretty detailed. I think it was worth the 2-week wait, as annoyed as we were, my God, because it was a full episode. As I've already said, we got to see different sides of people and the tides are changing. I'm not sure if it's for the better or for the worse. I will say for Corday, if he keeps on this path of being fun, light, open and honest, it's for the better. For Melange Da, I think it's going for the worst unless Melange Da acknowledges her wrong in reference to this whole Akeem situation. And yeah, guys, I hope you comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode. Follow me on all social media outlets. Thumbs up this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and thank you guys for tuning in. Bye, guys.